We are pivoting now to a pretty heated discussion on Piers Morgan's show. Now, I have to say this, the guy here, that Piers Morgan, he's brought him on before, and I don't know why he continues to bring this guy. This guy here, Jonathan, he's an IDF soldier. This guy is a war criminal. Did you guys know this? This is not just someone coming on to debate people about Israel and Gaza. That guy is a war criminal. He's one of the people that rejoined the IDF to go kill people in Gaza. He has no remorse, no sympathy for the civilians that have died. And like, this guy has no empathy whatsoever. And Piers Morgan continues to bring him back on the show. Now, this conversation gets a little bit heated between IDF dude and Candace Owens and Cenk Uygur, because this is after the recent pager explosions and the walkie-talkie explosion. So it does get really heated. And Jonathan is his name, the IDF soldier. He does not do a good job at answering Candace's question, and things just go crazy from there. Let's dive in, guys. Get the popcorn for this one.
Candace, your reaction to this extraordinary operation, seemingly led by Mossad, ordered by Netanyahu yesterday, ongoing today, right across Lebanon. 2 children are reported to have been killed in this operation, who were clearly civilians and not Hezbollah terrorists. That's reported by the Lebanese Health Authority, which is not Hezbollah. What is your response to this? Is it, as Jonathan just said, fair game if primarily the people who were targeted, almost all of them appear to have been Hezbollah?
Well, I think a question that I immediately want to ask him, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to, is that if you're able to delineate how surgical and precise these operations can be with the intelligence that you have, why are there 40,000 dead innocent women and children and civilians in Gaza? Because that's a question that I've always had. We keep hearing the excuse that behind every one of these victims is a Hamas soldier, but there's not 40,000 dead Hamas soldiers. And if the excuse is that there's a tunnel under there, I mean, just me thinking logically through engineering, you would only have to hit a tunnel at a couple of points to render it ineffective. So I'm just interested in why you guys can perform surgical procedures, but seemingly not in Gaza, where it looks like just an absolute war zone, and buildings and hospitals and children and women are dead.
So before he jumps in to answer that, one thing I want to say is that was an excellent question, because prior to this conversation, he was talking about, these are strategic, attacks. It's exact precision when he was talking about Lebanon, which I call BS on that as well. But that point that Candace made there, that is spot on, because it's the reality, because they're not trying to be, precise. Those are lies. They want all those people gone. They want to kill as many of them as possible. And the part that she mentioned about the tunnel, I've said this from the beginning. If you know that they're hiding in tunnels, why didn't you just go into the tunnels? Why are you blowing up hospitals and schools, killing little kids and shit? Because they want to get rid of all of them. Speaking of which, by the way, Macklemore just dropped Hens Hall Part 2. It's on Twitter. It's on Spotify, YouTube. Go listen to it. It's based. I wish I could play it on here, but I can't because of copyright. But all the proceeds go to UNRWA. It's based. And he calls out Kamala Harris this time in this one, not Joe Biden. Listen to this.
That point, let's get a response from Jonathan. It's a fair question.
It's a very fair question, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to make a comparison. I'm sure that you follow events and you're very interested in what happens in Israel and with what our enemies are doing, and I see that. But I'm sure that you know that until this cyber operation that Israel reportedly did, Israel was able to kill more than 500 Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, throughout Lebanon. Now, I haven't seen you tweet about it or any of the other people who usually support the other side. But if you take a look at how many civilians were killed in Lebanon as a result, as an unfortunate byproduct of Israeli strikes, and if you compare that to the situation in Gaza, I think that what you will find is it's the same IDF, the same operating procedures that we have in Gaza, only that here in Lebanon, until now, the situation is that Hezbollah has so far distinguished itself from civilian population, and they haven't been fighting from within cities. And as such, when the IDF has deployed lethal weapons against them, then terrorists have been killed and not civilians. And it's not because it's a different IDF. It's because, as you said, you used the word excuses. I would call it a reason and the sad reality of Hamas using Gazan population as their human shields, which I think is deplorable. And if you claim to be a defender of Palestinians and Arabs and other people, and you have that in your heart, and I think that your criticism should be pointed first and foremost towards Hamas and all of the other cowards who are using Palestinians as their human shields, who are afraid to fight out in the open, who are firing rockets from schools, and who are using mosques as their launch pads against Israel. That, I think, is despicable, and that should be condemned. Not the fact that we are going in there to fight them after they attacked us on October the 7th. But by all means.
So here we go again with it all started on October the 7th, right? They're not going to mention the times when Palestinians were having peaceful protests and the IDF were shooting at their foot. They're not going to mention the times when they've gone into Gaza and they've decided to mow the lawn. This isn't, listen, it wasn't just after October 7th that Israel started killing Palestinians, okay? This idea that he brings up of Hamas, they're shooting rocket launchers, etc. Compare the weapons that Hamas has to the weapons that Israel has. Israel gets their weapons from us. So I'll let you do that comparison. This idea that they're using the people as human shields. This has been debunked over and over again. Because if they were using the people as human shields, then all those schools and all those refugee camps and hospitals that you've bombed would have produced a number of dead Hamas soldiers. Instead, what we have are numbers and numbers of dead children. We have heard IDF soldiers even say that even the children are Hamas. They've killed babies. So that excuse that they give, that is to protect what Israel is doing. They tell on themselves when they say, well, they're hiding in the tunnels. Then why aren't you going in the tunnels? If they're in the tunnels, why are you bombing a hospital? If they're in the tunnels, why are you bombing the refugee camps? Israel has even killed Americans, and our government is just letting it happen.
Issue a condemnation. I didn't issue a condemnation. I asked you a question and you just delivered me the same talking points that we always hear. And you didn't actually provide me an answer.
I actually did.
If you are
I gave you
able
an
to go into
explanation.
a foreign country, you guys you have control over the Gaza Strip, right? It's a part of Israel.
No, it isn't.
If you are able to go into a country like Lebanon where you don't have control, where you can't just shut off their water, where you can't be monitoring people's actions in the same way and within the same proximity to Israel, why are you unable to similarly perform a surgical operation to locate where exactly those Hamas soldiers are? And by the way, do you have a number for how many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Right. So, I mean, you either weren't listening or maybe I wasn't
how
clear.
many Hamas soldiers have been killed?
Yeah, I heard your question,
Strip?
Candace. I heard your question. Maybe you weren't listening or I wasn't clear. I'm usually clear when I speak, but I'll repeat it.
Smart ass. You see that? Smart ass comment.
Israel has been able to take out more than 500 Hezbollah operatives and with absolutely minimal collateral damage in Lebanon. Why is that the case, which is different from the situation in Gaza? Because Hezbollah hasn't been hiding amongst civilians yet. Hamas is. And that is why, unfortunately, Palestinian civilians in Gaza have also been killed in significant numbers and many have been wounded.
That's a damn lie. What's funny about this is you can see Cenk is already sweating. So, Cenk is boiling inside. Like he is burning up inside. He's like, let me at him, Pierce. Let me at him.
If I were you, I wouldn't use Hamas information. I wouldn't rely on Hamas statistics and to claim for them to be true.
I'm asking you, I'm not asking Hamas. How many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, I'll answer. And it's nice that we're having an interview and Pierce is getting a few minutes off. According to the information that I have, and this is working numbers, I don't think that there are final numbers, and I think it will take a lot of time before a definite number of dead Hamas terrorists is given. But the best assessment that I am aware of is between 16 and 18,000 Hamas operatives that have been killed in combat in Gaza.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
bring in Cenk. Why are you laughing?
Because that's an outrageous, ludicrous number. Even the IDF doesn't make up numbers like that. Once they said 13,000, then they went back to 9,000. And this gentleman right here just made up 16 to 18,000. So Jonathan, do you concede that Israel has dictatorial control over Gaza and the West Bank? That it's a different situation than a sovereign nation that could have military or different barracks or can separate folks? It's like saying in occupied France, well, why was the resistance hiding among the civilian population? So of course we had to kill all the French who were protecting the resistance. So the problem is that another country, Israel, has dictatorial control over Gaza and West Bank. I mean, you've got to acknowledge that, right? I mean, you're not claiming that Gaza's free. You guys just destroyed 85%
I think that the only thing
if I may say
ridiculous...
that, I think we're focusing too much on the Israel-Hamas war, which we've done a lot on this show, as you know, with you guys, right? I would rather, Cenk, just get your reaction to a specific operation which appears to have been conducted at Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel's instructions, and carried out primarily led by Mossad. From an operational point of view, obviously a stunning success. But is it valid? Is it fair game, as Jonathan said, given the way that Hezbollah has been attacking Israel now for years?
Yeah, so the most important part of this, Piers, is why did Israel act now? Because, look, you could say, oh, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, so we should have gone into Iraq. No, I don't think so. You could say Hezbollah are terrorists, but then Israel has killed 30 times the civilians that Hamas has, let alone Hezbollah. So is the Israeli government, the IDF, and Netanyahu terrorists?
But you don't dispute that Hezbollah has been targeting Israel for years.
Okay. Yeah, and Israel's been targeting. Israel bombed Beirut, bombed Damascus.
No, forget Israel for a moment.
They bombed Tehran.
But do you accept,
they bomb all their neighbors.
Yeah,
but hold on. Why now, Piers?
Specifically,
now?
Do you accept that Hezbollah has persistently targeted Israel with endless rockets? Do you accept that?
Oh, they've launched rockets, no question. And I'm sure you guys can see that.
But that was after Israel was already attacking them first. Remember last year, after October 7th, I was telling you guys, I was even showing you back then, Israel was attacking Lebanon. It's not the first time. Israel's also been attacking Syria. They want the whole region. They want all of it. And they've been very clear about that. I've never seen any administration that has been more bold and more vocal about what they want. And world leaders just turn their heads and go, I don't know what you're talking about. They're trying to fight Hamas. So, and I'm going to show you that recent ceasefire statement that was just announced about the Biden administration at the end of this clip, because it's just very damning. You can all see what's happening here. You know, the big problem is that our politicians are controlled by the Israeli lobby. Our politicians belong to organizations like AIPAC and J Street, and that should have never happened. That should have never happened.
Israel has dictatorial control over Gaza and the West Bank.
But don't go back to that. So is it fair game, as Jonathan said, if it was Hezbollah terrorists who were specifically targeted through their pages, is that fair game, given the state of the warfare between Hezbollah and Israel?
Look, I can answer that question, but we've got to get to the more important question.
Well, answer that question first.
Hold on, I'll answer it. So did they check that the 2,800 people and the children near them and the other civilians near them, that they were all, quote unquote, terrorists before they decided to murder all of them? Now, luckily, only 12 died, but 2,800 were injured. No, they didn't check. And by the way, buyer beware of Israeli products. Apparently, they have bombs in them. Okay.
So he's saying, do you suggest we send them a warning first? So I thought you guys said you do that anyway. You see how you catch them in lies? I thought, according to you, Jonathan, didn't you say that the IDF sends warnings first? And it's not just about Gaza. It's not just about what's happening in Lebanon with the pagers and the walkie-talkies. It's not just about all that. It's also about the fact that you guys are kicking people out of their homes in the West Bank, dragging people out of their homes. Largest expansion in the West Bank. I guess Hamas has embedded themselves among the people there too, huh? Get out of here.
So, do you suggest we send them a warning?
Question is why
you know,
now?
you remind me of when the BBC asked me if we should have warned the Hamas terrorists who were keeping our 4 hostages before we went in to save them. Why didn't we warn them before? Because civilians were killed in the combat. You are just as ridiculous in your pontification and in your acrobatics to try to smear Israel. You're really unable to say black is black and white is white. And look how low Pierce has to go in order to get you to say something against Hezbollah. How low does he have to go in order to justify Israel defending
Jonathan,
itself?
It's easy. It's easy. I call out Hamas and Hezbollah all the time. I wish they would never fire any rockets. I wish there would be no violence.
Right.
You, on the other hand, are totally okay with killing
the French
30 times the number. Hold on, let me finish. You're okay with killing 30 times the number of civilians that Hamas did. Obviously, that's terrorism on a mass scale that Israel does.
No, it isn't.
But you say it's okay because we're the good guys? No, that makes you terrorists.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
You didn't want to kill them.
No matter how many times you repeat the lie, it doesn't turn it to be true. Israel is defending itself against a jihadi enemy, an enemy that has said we are not going to stop until we kill all the Jews. Wouldn't want.
So let me get this straight. So the number of times we've heard statements from the IDF, we've heard statements from people that are part of Netanyahu's cabinet say they want all the Palestinians gone. They want all the Arab people gone. Why is it okay for them to make those blatant statements? Why is it okay for them to say that they are just defending their self, but nobody else has a right to defend their self against Israel? So Israel's allowed to punch you, kick you, knock you down. But if you hit them back, you're the problem. This is the question like I would ask. Like, why is that okay? Like, you're not defending yourself when you're the one who is the aggressor. You're not defending yourself when you're the one that's kicking people out of their homes and you're taking people's homes. You're a criminal. You're the threat. You're the problem. And that's simply how I see it.
Yeah. You or anybody else to be in that situation, but that is the situation that Israel is in. We have to defend ourselves against people who say our only goal in life is to eradicate Israel and kill all the Jews who live there and build a Sharia-based state in Palestine. Yeah. Those are their words. So, I don't know how you think that you could defend yourself Jonathan, against it, but being nice isn't one of them.
You live in La La Land, where you say the Palestinians might prevent an Israeli state. Well, Israel exists, but you prevent a Palestinian state, take away all their freedom, you take away all their rights, you kill them wantonly anytime you want, you destroy all of Gaza, and you pretend not to be the terrorist. So let me ask you something. Is the IDF the most incompetent military in the history of the world, that they just accidentally killed over 30,000 civilians, including over 25,000 women and children in Gaza? Are they buffoons who just cannot ever get the right target? Oh, we got a couple of Hamas guys. Oops, we killed a stadium full of women and children.
Listen,
and you're pretending not to be a terrorist?
Is someone who would be sitting here and doing the apologetics of Hamas. And I say that with a little respect. For you to be saying that without having lived in Israel, without having dealt with terrorists that are going after our families and women and children, without even understanding what...
It's you. You're the one going after people. You guys were the aggressor. You've been the aggressor. You kicked these people off their land. And then you put them into an open air prison and you expect them to just not try to get out. Look, what kind of madness is this, ladies and gentlemen?
Hamas is. You compare Hamas to French resistance fighters? Seriously? You compare Hamas, a jihadi terrorist genocidal organization that says, yeah, well, it's a stupid analogy. It's reckless, and you're whitewashing Hamas by even thinking that you can compare French resistance against Nazi Germany to Hamas terrorists that are willing to burn and butcher and rape and kill Israeli civilians.
I'm not talking about the Hamas terrorists. I'm talking about the civilians you butchered.
I'm talking about butchering anybody.
I want to bring in
Cenk should have pushed back there when he brought up the sexual assault again. Cenk should have pushed back and said, "Are you serious? Didn't CNN do an entire investigation about the Palestinian detention center, about the Palestinian prisoners that you detained, and they have video evidence of people being sexually assaulted there by the IDF? Cenk should have brought that up. He might not have been thinking about that at that moment, but he should have put that. Every time they bring that up, you make sure you mention what was exposed about the Palestinian detention center. That's important. A lot of people don't mention that.
A stadium full of dead women and children, and you say that their lives don't count, right? Their lives don't count. Have you ever lived in Gaza?
I've never
lived in
that
I
want to bring in Candace to ask the same question I asked Cenk, which he hasn't really answered in a clear, simple manner, which I think is a very easy question to answer. Hezbollah are wedded to constantly attacking Israel. They are an enemy of Israel, as Hamas are. So is it, as Jonathan said, fair game for Israel to have conducted this operation, which appears to have been almost, and I use that phrase very advisedly, almost exclusively against Hezbollah terrorists?
If the operation was targeted almost exclusively at Hezbollah operatives and it was surgical, I think every state has a right when it's being attacked to launch an attack back at the operatives that are attacking them. That's a very easy answer for me. And I take, by the way, Jonathan, great exception to painting me as some like broad defender of Middle Eastern. You said the Palestinian people. I just defend innocent life. And so whether it's October 7th and Israeli children being killed and Israeli children being taken away, I used my platform to say how wrong it was and people were pulling down the signs. And I'm also feeling just as strongly about the Palestinian women and children. And I don't like when people try to conflate humanity as some political position that's against the Jews or against the Palestinians. At the end of the day, the preservation of life is what needs to come first. And I don't feel if you did this in Lebanon, great. I'm happy for that. I don't think that has been your priority in Gaza. And I use my platform to say how wrong I think what's happening is there.
Let me just interject here for just a second. So this was after the pager explosion when this interview took place. But since then, the day after that, there was the walkie-talkie explosion where it was reported by CNN where over 400 people were injured. So just keep that in mind, guys. This is right after the pager explosion, but then there was another walkie-talkie explosion after that. So,
but that's not a condemnation against Jews or the Jewish people. It's a condemnation against Netanyahu's government, which I think has become somewhat radicalized. And I think that's a fair critique, given the fact that you have so many Israelis that are taking to the street protesting him, as well as the families of the people who are hostages who have been protesting him and speaking out, as well as some of the most prominent Jews in America, like Ari Emanuel, who is a Zionist, who has said that he thinks what Bibi Netanyahu is doing is selfish. So I think it's important to separate what is fair critique and an understandable emotion that people are having, seeing so many dead Palestinian children on their screens every day on X and on Instagram. And I know, Piers, you are also being tagged in these photos of mothers mourning and screaming. It's wrong.
No, I agree. Jonathan.
I will say this. Jonathan doesn't care about those kids that are, dying. And I've never seen images like this before until October 7th. Some of the images that I've seen of the children it will always sit with me. But I will say Jonathan doesn't care because he doesn't see them as human. Jonathan is a war criminal. Jonathan should not be on this platform acting as though he's just some random guy who was once a part of the IDF. Jonathan went in and killed those people. I want to be very clear about that. Jonathan went in and killed those people. This guy is a murderer.
Specifically for you, is a breaking story that the Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, has declared the start of a new phase, his words, of war as the IDF turns attention to the northern front with Lebanon. Now, that's a massive escalation in what is already a deeply turbulent situation. Can Israel conduct wars on all these different fronts?
Yeah, I will, of course, answer that. And I'll reflect on what you said before, Candace. I appreciate your words, and I think that I agree with you on protecting human life, dignity of human beings.
No,
I think we're in total agreement. And if you used your platform for good, humane purposes, I commend it, and that's great. And full stop, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Regarding the current situation in Lebanon.
Candace, I sincerely hope Candace looked up who this guy was after this discussion.
I just before coming on, I saw that tweet, and I think what Defense Minister Gallant is doing is messaging to the US and to Tehran and to Beirut that Israel is getting closer, and that the level of frustration within Israel with the current unsustainable situation of more than 70,000 Israeli civilians that have been pushed out of their homes, and tens of Israeli communities in northern Israel that are now ghost towns because Hezbollah has been attacking them directly, and these areas are unsafe to live in. And for 11 months, and I'm sure that many people don't know it because it's not really reported a lot in international media, but Israeli civilians have been targeted by Hamas for about a year, and people are saying enough. For how long are we going to have to live in temporary housing in other places of Israel? And when will the Israeli government make sure that it is safe to live in sovereign Israel? And
people in Gaza feel the same way, Jonathan. Talking about people living in temporary housing, people not feeling safe, people being pushed out of their homes. This guy literally talked about Israelis being pushed out of their homes. This guy talking about them being pushed out of their homes. Meanwhile, Israeli settlers and IDF members are pushing people out of their homes in the West Bank. They've been doing this for years. This did not start after October 7th. And now we're supposed to feel sorry for you because you are getting a taste of your own medicine. This is crazy. This is bizarre. This is really bizarre. This is literally like a slave master wanting you to have sympathy on them instead of the slave. This is insane.
I think that's a very basic, very legitimate claim of a civilian population that says enough. We want to go back to our homes. We haven't done anything to deserve this. And I think that there's been a long process of building this up. And to answer the question, yes, Israel can. It'll be tough. It will be, I think, very, very difficult. And it will be a horrible war. If Israel and Hezbollah go all out against each other. Hezbollah is a very powerful Iranian proxy with tens of thousands of rockets, with the ability and intention to hit and kill thousands of Israeli civilians. And of course, Israel will not be taking that sitting down, and Israel will retaliate. And I'm not going to be surprised to see you and perhaps other people first condemning Israel for defending itself, and then maybe thinking why Israel is doing it.
And you know what they'll try to do? They're going to try to get the U.S. military involved in their mess. So I tell you again, if you have friends or family members in the military, tell them to get out. This is Israel. They've been planning this for so long. This all-out war. You think they're going to be able to fight Hezbollah? They're going to be able to fight Hamas and Hezbollah and all these people at the same time together? No, they're going to ask for the U.S. government to intervene and to bring in U.S. troops. And once again, your kids, your family members will be going to the Middle East to go kill people for this genocidal apartheid state.
What is happening is that Hezbollah has fired more than 5,000 rockets at Israel in the past months alone. They have gone a bit unnoticed by international media, and perhaps Israel now is saying enough is enough and we're going to defend ourselves. And if Hezbollah didn't get the message the first time with the beepers, maybe they'll be getting it today with the walkie-talkies. And if they don't get those two messages and understand that they have transgressed and are aggressing against Israeli civilians too much, then maybe perhaps more needs to happen. I, as an Israeli, hope that we won't need to go to that situation, because I know that it will be bad. There will be bloodshed. It will be carnage in Israel and in Lebanon. It is still avoidable. And those who need to stop firing are Hezbollah, who have been firing at Israel for the last 11 months without anybody really condemning it or doing anything about it.
Okay.
No, that's BS. The U.S. government has condemned it multiple times. In fact, the U.S. government is protecting you and not condemning you as much as it should. Every time you are to blame for something, the U.S. government finds an excuse for you. So stop it with that BS. Second of all, Israel has the Iron Dome. Israel has a shield of protection that the others do not. Gaza doesn't have an Iron Dome. The West Bank doesn't have an Iron Dome, right? Lebanon doesn't. Israel has an Iron Dome. So a good amount of those missiles that have been flown their way are intercepted by the Iron Dome. Don't ever forget about that, guys. They have a portion of defense that others do not.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Cenk, I'll give you the final word on this part of the debate, and then I'm going to say goodbye to you and Jonathan. And Candace, you're going to stay on just for a little bit of a chat after, just me and you. So just, Cenk, your response to what Jonathan just said there. Clearly, this is a massive escalation already. Nobody's quite sure how Hezbollah is going to respond. But as Jonathan said, they are equipped to, if they go all out, to have a proper, massive, major war with Israel, which would have enormous repercussions for the whole region. What is your thought about that prospect?
Yeah, so first of all, there's a correct path here. Take the ceasefire, stop the occupation, 2 states, and let both Israel and the Palestinians live in peace and freedom.
None of this is related to Hezbollah. Sorry to interrupt, but none of this is related to Hezbollah.
It's 100% related to Hezbollah.
No, it isn't. Hezbollah, this Iranian proxy has nothing to do with Palestinians. Hezbollah has nothing to do with Palestinians. They are Lebanese. They are Shiite Lebanese. They have nothing to do with Palestinians. They have nothing to do with Palestinians. There's not a single Palestinian in Hezbollah. So for you to tie it to Hamas is ridiculous.
No, you're
it is whitewashing.
ridiculous.
It's the old tired propaganda against Israel. You have to be honest and address the situation. Hezbollah has nothing to do with Palestinians.
Hezbollah is doing it because of the occupation. Are you so stupid you don't understand that?
None of Hezbollah's business. Nothing to do with Hezbollah.
Oh, yeah, all the Muslims. Watch us.
Who appointed Hezbollah? Who appointed Hezbollah other than their Iranian masters to have anything to say about Israel and Palestinians? What have Lebanese militias got to do with it?
You don't want peace. I know. You want to occupy and steal their land as long as humanly possible. I got it.
Hezbollah doesn't have a say. It's not their business. It's Israel and Palestinians. If you were to say, take a ceasefire with Hamas, I would say that's a valid topic to discuss. What does Hezbollah have to do with Palestinians? Absolutely nothing. The only thing that they have in common is that they are funded by Iran.
You think Hezbollah is attacking Israel out of thin blue air? Do you actually genuinely believe that Hezbollah is attacking Israel for no reason at all, just because they don't like Jews? No, they're attacking you because of the occupation. Are you so incredibly ignorant that you don't understand that simple concept?
The only ignorant person here is you, my esteemed colleague to the panel, to be parroting Iranian talking points and
blah, 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 blah. I know. Everything is terrorist. Anyone who's opposed to Israel is terrorist. You can't even make a coherent
Israel
claim. Can murder anyone they like, but they're not terrorists. I know.
What has Hezbollah got to do with Palestinians? Nothing, except that they have the same benefactor, Iran, that is providing them weapons. Nothing else. No logical connection, no religious connection, no territorial connection, nothing. Only empty talking points from people like you and from Iranian parrots. That's it.
The connection is they're not Israel. The connection is they're all in the middle. They're not you. The connection is they've all been targeted by you. The connection is they have received assaults by you. That is the connection.
Yeah. I know. Poor victim Israel. Oh, they just have been humiliated and oppressed and occupied for 57 long years. 5.5 million Muslims, and they're outraged to find out that other Muslims might not love that idea.
There you go.
So look, guys, Piers, this is the most important part of this. Right now, the reason I brought up the ceasefire is you could take the ceasefire, and I guarantee you that Hezbollah stops the rocket attacks. That's because that's what they've said, our experts say, every single expert in the world says. But instead of taking the ceasefire, What Netanyahu has decided is, in order to protect his own political career, and he's deeply unpopular in Israel and faces corruption charges, but if he signs a ceasefire, the right-wing radicals in his government will leave the government, and Netanyahu will go to election and lose. So he's worried about his own political career. So he has decided to go to war instead. Instead of signing a peace deal, he bombed Hezbollah. Now, you could say, hey, I like that he bombed Hezbollah. You could say that Hezbollah is dirty terrorists, and you could say that everyone who ever opposed Israel is terrorists, and you could say all the things that you want to say. But the bottom line is, Israel is starting a much larger regional war, and
Israel is starting on the 7th of October.
I guarantee you that Jonathan is going to come on here. You're not going to talk over me. I guarantee you Jonathan comes on here and says, America must pay for it. America must die for Israel. That's what he's going to say.
You can scream until tomorrow. You don't impress me even a millimeter. Hezbollah attacked Israel.
Okay, then we can both talk at the same time. Okay, let's talk at the same time.
We did
this
not
guy
attack
wants you,
Hezbollah.
America,
On the 8th
he
of
wants
October,
you to attack
we
the
were
whole
quiet
Middle
in our
East.
homes and
He wants you to
Hezbollah
attack
attacked
all
Israel.
Muslims.
That is the only thing that happens. And by the way, have you ever heard of the Radwan force? Do you know what they're designed to do? They're designed to invade into Israel and do exactly what Hamas did on October the 7th. That is the main reason why Israel cannot live with Hezbollah deployed on the border.
Gentlemen, I've got to leave it there.
You are starting a war.
Well, I think a war has been being waged actually for quite some time. And we'll see how this now plays out. But clearly,
no, Piers,
clearly,
don't
it has been. I think if you are a terror group who persistently fires rockets at a country, you are at war with them, right? I mean, you may not think you are, but you are.
I don't want to fight it. I don't want America to fight it, and I don't want America to pay for it. Jonathan, do you agree? You said, hey, if you're not Palestinian or Israeli, Hezbollah should have nothing to do with it. Iran, no other country should have anything to do with it. Great, then you're on your own. Don't ask for another dollar. Give us the $26 billion back. Why are you using our money to start giant wars in the Middle East? We already had one in Iraq. We hated it, don't want it, and you're demanding that we pay for Israel's war in the Middle East.
Not at all. And if you only knew, if you only had an idea of how much Israel does great for U.S. foreign policy and how much Israel serves American interests in the region, you wouldn't say what you've been saying if you really cared about America.
Okay, I've got to leave it there.
Israel does nothing for America other than take our money.
Only
taking our money, and we'll end it there. That was a heated discussion, but it's true. You get money from us. You get $3.8 billion a year from us. You get weapons from us. So stop it with what we doing for you. All the money and supplies are coming from us. They cooked in that moment. Cenk was really good there. Candace was really good. I could tell that Cenk was going to get upset because I could see, I was like, Cenk is starting to sweat. Nothing has happened yet. He hasn't started speaking yet. So I could tell he was about to go off in just a second. But I'm going to show you right now with that ceasefire. I told you guys, this was all a part of the game. All a part of the game. All these politicians have been lying to you. So think about that when you're trying to think about who you're going to support. Jason Call just shared this. Will Kamala be any better? No. The entire Democratic Party is a trash heap. And if you're not on your way out right now, it just means you're a little piece of that heap. So he's retweeting Emma Vigilant, who said, a catastrophic legacy-defining failure. Biden thought of himself as some foreign policy wonderkind from his time on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but he's actually just cocky brute. So this just came through. U.S. officials concede Gaza ceasefire out of reach for Biden. The Biden administration is still pushing talks, but a breakthrough appears unlikely. Okay, so share this and pass this on with everyone, guys, because this is what I've been trying to tell you. They have been lying to you. They were lying all this damn time. The State Department was lying. Biden was lying. Kamala Harris is lying to you. Donald Trump actually told you to your face that he would try to protect Israel at all costs. He told you that to his face. So we're not putting him in this category because he kept it real with you. But Kamala, Biden, and John Kirby, these people have been lying to you over and over again. They were not serious about getting a ceasefire done. And the reason how you know that is because they continued to give them weapons. They continued to give them, as I told you, You cannot be serious about a ceasefire when the majority of the weapons that they are using to kill the people is coming from the United States. So if you were serious about a ceasefire, you would have agreed to an arms embargo, which Kamala Harris, by the way, never wanted to agree to. The uncommitted people, they came out and have publicly said they couldn't endorse her because she wouldn't agree to an arms embargo. Now they all over the place too, because they still told people don't vote Trump, but don't vote third party because that'll help Trump. So they all over the place. That's coming from the leaders. But if you talk to a lot of the people in the Muslim community, they're not voting for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. They plan to vote third party. There's a reason why Jill Stein has so much support from the Muslim voter community. There's a reason. I told you they've been lying to you all this time. You guys realize it's September 20th. We are almost at October. It will soon be October 7th again. A year of this going on. So this whole idea of we are trying to push through. What do you mean you're trying to push through? You're the one that controls the weapons. You're the one giving the weapons to them. What the F do you mean you're trying to push something when you're the one in control? But no, people wanted to tell you, let's negotiate. Let's try to push Biden left. Then they told you push Kamala left. I'm like, all you got to do is look at the donors. And that tells you where they are going to move on certain issues and how. I don't know how many times Kamala Harris had to say publicly that she would never condition arms to Israel or stop arms to Israel for people to really get it through their thick brains. I tried to tell you, but people are like, no, we want her to be the right one because she's not Donald Trump. You know what? Sometimes you got two bad choices. And sometimes when you have two bad choices, you can go outside of that. So, I mean, if I wanted a slice of pepperoni pizza and somebody showed up and gave me a slice of cheese pizza, and someone showed up and gave me a slice of sausage pizza, but I want a pepperoni pizza. Am I going to take the cheese or the sausage? Hell no. I'm going to push them to the side. I'm going to walk down the middle and I'm going to get the damn pepperoni pizza. Some of you got decisions to make. Some of you guys got to decide, do you just want to go along with what people are telling you to do because it'll make you feel better? Because you don't want to be on the outside? Or do you want to go get that damn slice of pepperoni pizza?